long? It's not that long.
No, it's not.
May I have your attention? I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome all those in attendance and those live streaming. We have a full council today except for Patrick Shepley and Jerry Morris, both who are excused for personal reasons. Also present are our town manager, Cliff Gravier, Terry Tiemann, our assistant town manager, Raylene Menominee, our town clerk, and Will Wharton, our IT director. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Okay, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Approval of the minutes of our public hearing on February the 17th. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of our February 21st meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Approval of the financial report. Mrs. Keel.
Thank you, Mayor. This report covers the budget through February 28th, 2025. We are 92% through fiscal year 2025. Revenue is on budget. We've collected 98.4% of the budgeted revenue compared to 101.1% last year. We anticipate being over budget in revenue for this fiscal year. Our operating expenses are on target. We've expended 90% of our budget compared to 88.6% last year. Recognizing that this report is subject to audit, I move that the council approve this unaudited report.
Okay, do I have a motion? Second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Announcements and recognition of visitors. First of all, I'm going to say, is there anybody that has any public comment? And if you do have public comment about something that is already on the agenda, please hold it until we get to that item. Is there anybody with something to say? Okay. Then I'd like to move on to recognition of visitors and announcements. We have 2 annual donations we normally do this time of year. I'm going to step over to the podium here just so it's a little more convenient. We have two donations to give out today, which the town normally does this time of year. The first one is going to the Bethany Beach Volunteer Fire Department. Brian Martin, please come forward. Thank you very much. Thank you. As we know, the fire department is certainly something that is very important in the town and became even more important here a couple nights ago. We had a house down on the boardwalk that had a serious fire in it. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but there was a serious fire down on the boardwalk. So thank you for all you do and all that everybody does for the fire department.
Thank you very much.
And secondly, the South Coastal Library, Edie Dondero. Sue's not here today, is she? She couldn't make it. Okay. To the Friends of the South Coastal Library, we have a contribution, which we are grateful to present. And the library is an integral part of the community, and we hope, even in these trying times. I saw a little, if you haven't seen it yet, there is a letter to the editor, which Edie wrote in the Coastal Point, which points out how important the library is and how challenging it may be this coming year with the new federal atmosphere in Washington. So hopefully this will help a little bit.
It certainly will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Couple of other announcements. Bethany Beach Town Council will hold a special election on Saturday, May the 24th, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's a little different than we've had in the past, and we hope it's a little more convenient. So this is for the purpose of voting for or against the Town Council's proposal to borrow the sum of money for the construction of a new clarifier. This last week, we also had a wonderful Employees Appreciation Day. I just want to pass that on to everybody. We celebrated morning coffee and a shortened day with a tremendous group of full-time employees who really make Bethany Beach the great place it is, and I can't emphasize that more. They're here on holidays, weekends, snow days, very early in the morning, late at night for our events, for emergencies, overnight, and during the day. Thank you, employees. Let's have a hand for our employees. Last week, council members Mickey Hinman, Teresa Keel, Jerry Morris, and myself traveled to Washington, D.C. for the Delaware League of Local Governments annual Hill Day at the Capitol. We met with our senators, Senator Chris Coons and Lisa Blunt Rochester, as well as Congresswoman Sarah McBride. It was an opportunity to discuss our concerns, of which there are many, in this ongoing period of uncertainty in Washington. Unfortunately, I cannot say that we got much of a reassurance. So we'll see what happens this next year between replenishment, grants, resiliency efforts, and all those funds that we hope we can get from the federal government. Okay, I'm going to move on to reports. Reports from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee. Mr. Hinman.
Thank you, Mayor. Teresa and I will give an update. We want to share with you our meeting we had on February 27th. We had a pretty aggressive agenda. Give you an update on what's going on. So if you could forward the next chart, Will, please. The agenda had, as you can say, pretty full, but the things I want to highlight are the three things in the middle around the Smart Growth America. We had a guest speaker. We'll talk a little bit about that. Some of our focus areas, our planning for the upcoming March workshop, which is actually next week, where we're inviting our community neighbors for an event. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then lastly, about the traffic report that we received. So Smart Growth America was represented by Heidi Simon. A couple of our colleagues actually attended a workshop they attended, and I want to thank former Mayor Hardeman, who actually tipped us off that it was going on. So we were able to get a couple people involved, and we were so impressed with her presentation that we invited her to speak to our group. And they're really thinking about how to build communities that are safe for pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers, obviously, in a resilient way. So it was a really good overview. She gave us a really extensive chart deck that we walked through. I want to highlight this one because this is some data we have seen before. The first time I've seen this 5-year snippet where it looks at Delaware being one of the deadliest states, if you think about that period in terms of pedestrians. So it really speaks to the opportunities and challenges we have with us, right? I mean, we live in this beautiful community, and this is for all of Delaware, right? So, but it gives us an opportunity to think about all the work that's going in, the seriousness we take this, and the improvements we're trying to make. The sort of the summary chart for her was around that she introduced this concept of complete streets, which we'd heard before, but the real key of it is, I think, the idea of how we go about proactively planning and designing our communities, or making retrofits to benefit all. And I love the 3 things she highlighted: engagement of community members, educate and inform, and then addressing pushback and feedback. And I know we don't do that perfectly. We can always get better, but I do believe as a town, we're trying to do all 3 of those things, to sort of stay on our game and to think about not only where we are, but where we want to go as a community around pedestrian, bicyclists particularly. So it was a really good focus group discussion we had, and we're probably going to invite Heidi back at some point in the future. Next week, we're having our learning and sharing event on the 27th. We did this last year, and it was very successful, where we literally invited neighbors, our neighboring communities to come, and to share about what they want to focus on as we approach the upcoming summer season. Because we all have sort of different initiatives, different ideas. There's a lot of overlap, but it's also an opportunity for us just to break bread together, share some ideas, stimulate thought, and think about things we can do differently. The agenda, as you see laid out, we will have a kickoff and welcome. We'll have DelDOT coming. They're going to speak primarily about infrastructure projects. So if you think about one of the big ones going on right now is up on Route 1, a little south of the bridge, right, with the pedestrian crossover. We'll have about an hour or so for the communities to share a 10-minute snippet of their areas of focus for the year, again, where we can learn and share from each other. And then the last half hour, we have a representative from DNREC their focus is going to be a little bit more on trails and pathways, both that are been created as well as some of their future plans. So we really think it's an opportunity for all of us. We're really just sort of facilitating it with our neighbors from a Bethany Beach perspective to sort of stimulate the thinking a little bit for all of us. And again, this is the second year we've done it, and I think there was a lot of good takeaway from it, so we're excited to do it again. The last thing we're going to do, I just want to share with you briefly our agenda for next month for our August meeting. We're going to obviously review some of the takeaways we learned from the March meeting, right, and how we can incorporate that into our plan for Bethany. We have a presentation from Rusty Matu. He was actually here last year, but he's going to help us, and Cliff helped remind me of this, remind Teresa and I of this. He's going to give us a little bit of a primer on how we determine safe speeds with some of the laws and the like, and the uniform guidance that's changing, and how to sort of be up to date on that. So that's going to be a really helpful discussion. And the other thing we're going to do is that our team has a copy of the traffic group analysis that we started, I guess, Cliff, a couple years ago. We got a preliminary result. We pushed back a little bit. I say we, Cliff pushed back quite a bit, I think, to get, I think, a little bit of a deeper dive. We have that, so our team has that, and we're actually going to use part of our August or our April meeting to sort of do what are the key takeaways from that we can then share back with the council and to the then we can prepare for dissemination to the rest of the town. So, Teresa, what did I miss?
Nothing. You got all of it.
Any questions from the community? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mickey. Moving on, the next report is the Non-Residential and Design Review Committee. Patrick is not here today, and he's had a lot going on in his life and was not able to get the presentation together. So we're going to forego that one till next meeting. Report from the Budget and Finance Committee, Mrs. Keel.
Thank you, Mayor. The Budget and Finance Committee has had 2 meetings since our last council meeting, one at the end of February to discuss the second draft of the fiscal year 2026 budget, and a public meeting held last Monday, the 17th. We actually, for the first time in many years, had people attend that meeting and make comments. So we very much appreciate the time they took to send in emails and appear in person with their thoughts. The comments came in 2 categories. Some people spoke about the proposed increase in the hourly parking fees, the shuttle fees, and the daily and weekly parking permits. A few other people spoke of the increase in the cost per gallon of water. I'm going to start with the water fee. The water department here in Bethany is essentially run as a separate business. It has its own budget, it has its own reserves, it has its own expenses. So it's important that the fees support the business, the costs of the water company, and increase its reserves. The cost of the water per gallon hasn't been raised in 10 years. It should have been raised in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which was discussed in March of 2020. The council wisely determined that that was a terrible time to raise any fees, and so that was put aside. In the years since, other departments have had greater needs, and those have been addressed, and now we're left with having to address the needs of the water department. And that's how we got to a point where we had to increase the rate 20%. But please keep in mind, it hasn't been done in 10 years. Typically, the town doesn't, typically we like to do this more often with smaller increases, but due to the circumstances, we were not able to do it. The other issue was the increase in the cost of the hourly parking rate. It is currently $3 an hour. When we started our budget process, the budget included an increase of $3.50 per hour. And when we looked at the second draft of the budget at the end of February, we determined that there was still a shortfall in costs, and we were not able to add to our reserves. If we increase the cost to $4 an hour along with the other fees, it allows us to be fiscally strong. It allows the summer revenues to pay for the summer expenses. And that way the residents don't bear the burden of concerts and other summer costs. It's also important to note that 88% of our summer funding comes from 2 sources. It comes from the rental taxes and the parking fees. One point that was made on Monday that I think is worth repeating, the state of Delaware passed an increase in the rental tax this year. None of that comes directly to the town. Some goes into a general fund, and some goes into a fund that is supposed to be used to pay for beach replenishment. So that's not an option for us. It's not a revenue source we can use. And the increase to $4 an hour will allow the town to build its reserves. And as the mayor said, we're not sure how much federal and state support we'll be getting in the future. So we need to make sure that we have our fiscal house in order. That's what I have.
Can I add one thing on that? Just so everybody is aware, Rehoboth has been at $4 an hour for over a year, so we're not out of play here. Dewey is raising theirs to $4 an hour this year. I believe Ocean City is already at $4.50 an hour, so we're certainly not out of the realm of where we should be. We're right where we actually should be to be in concert with the other communities around us. So just a point to be aware of.
Mayor, if I may.
Certainly.
One of the things we did hear on Monday were how expenses are increasing for businesses. And I think an important point is that right at the very end of COVID, our summer expenses were budgeted at $4.9 million, and this current budget sees our expenses at $6.9 million. So it's a $2 million increase in that period. So it's significant for us.
It's 41%.
And so much of that summer events and activities
Staffing.
support
Yeah.
support all the businesses.
Yes.
You know, bring people in and keep the town the vibrant atmosphere that it has been and will continue to be. So, anybody else have any comments?
Mayor, I would just like to thank Janet and Melanie, Teresa and her team for the work that's gone into this. I mean, it really is a important part of our process and trying to think how we can be consistent with our structure, our plan. And the key thing, I think, for me, is that truly the uncertainty we have. Like, we don't know what's going to happen next year from a federal and state level, right? I mean, it really, and if anyone knows more than I do, you can help enforce, but it seems like everything is on the table right now, which we don't want to be. I certainly is I think a better position to be conservative rather than aggressive with some of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next report, 4th of July Committee, Bruce Fry. Standing in for Chris Lawrence. Blast from the past.
Our parade chair, Chris Lawrence, couldn't be here today, so he asked me to read his report. The 4th of, Will, yeah. Okay, good. 4th of July Parade Committee met on Tuesday, March 4th. We confirmed there would be no price increase in T-shirts in 2025. $15 for children's, $20 for adult short sleeve, and $30 for adult long sleeve. As you can see the short sleeves here. I wanted to point one out thing. There's a lot going on in this picture. At the bottom of this clock, right here, there's an RA, and that's Ray Allmiller, who passed away last fall, and he was a big part of the parade, so we wanted to stick him in there somewhere. So he's on the shirt. A committee task force recommended changes to the parade float categories and award structure. For 2025, we'll have 6 individual awards for parade participants. The Best in Parade, representing a best overall entry. The Bethany Cup is awarded to a local participating business. It is a large trophy engraved with the business's name. For bragging rights, the trophy will be displayed in the business for a year until it is awarded again next year. The Theme Award is an entry or float that best depicts the parade theme. And the theme is Traditions Thrive in 25. The Spirit Award best personifies a spirit of enthusiasm. The Vehicle Award demonstrates the most unique and crowd-pleasing. And the Judges Award, up to 2 awards in this category as determined by the panel of judges. The parade committee is excited to contact local businesses to encourage them to participate more in this year's parade. The committee also nominated and approved a new grand marshal for the parade. Wait for it, Bruce Fry. The committee will meet again on Tuesday, May 20th at 9 a.m. Are there any questions from? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Next report up, the Police Accountability Committee. Mrs. Hardiman.
Thank you, Mayor. The Police Accountability Committee is required to meet at least quarterly, and that's under the law. There are a lot of things that the law has mandated that we do, and one of them is that we meet quarterly, and another one is a couple of the people that we have to have on the committee. One has to be a religious leader in the community, and for that we have Pastor Rich from across the street, and also someone who has been affected in some way by law enforcement, and we have a business owner, Erin Turnahan, who has called the police often for shoplifting, so she has had that experience. And then the rest of the committee are people from the community who have been appointed. We have Diane Fogash. Who else do we have?
Dan
Dan Rosenblatt.
Rosenblatt. Dan Rosenblatt.
Oh, Dan, I'm sorry. And Dan has many years of experience. He was the executive director of the National Police Chiefs Association for about 20 years. So he brings a lot of experience to the table. So we had our first quarterly meeting, which we were required to do for 2025, which was on March 4th. And prior to that, there's also a requirement that we complete any non-law enforcement persons on the committee complete 20 hours of training, and it can be done in different ways. So on February 26th, we participated with our police department in their regular yearly training. So we learned how to use the baton and different things, use of force, and also how to use a tourniquet. So it was very interesting. And one of the things about our police department that I found, I wasn't surprised, but it was a surprise. They have someone who's an expert in every field, so they don't have to go out to any other department to come in and help them train. They have firearms, they have personnel, they have everything. So they do an excellent job. So we were fortunate enough to participate with them, and that took care of 5 hours of our training, and we have 3 others that we had with a training beforehand just to get us acclimated to what the committee was all about. So we're up to 8 hours. And we have seasonal training of police officers coming up and also ride-alongs. So we should be able to complete our 20 hours within the first year as required. PACs fall under the general supervision of the Delaware Police Officer Standards and Training Commission, which is a division of the Delaware Department of Safety and Homeland Security. And so based on the requirements that they have imposed upon us, at this past meeting, we adopted bylaws and we also, there was no specification as to how many years an appointment was. So what other departments have done, other boards have done, is they've made it 3 years, and we felt that 3 years was reasonable, given that we needed the 20 hours of training. You don't want to invest 20 hours of training and have a year or a 2-year appointment, so we made it 3 years. And also that makes it standard. Planning and zoning is a 3-year appointment, and so is Board of Adjustments. So they're all the mandated committees have the same term, 3 years. And then in accordance with the bylaws, we elected Erin Turnahan as the PAC vice chairperson. Chief Foley and Deputy Chief Norman gave a very thorough report. They walked us through the structure of our police department, the chain of command, the police officer's Bill of Rights, and the fact that there's always a sergeant or a supervisor on duty at all times, somebody with experience. And they explained in great detail the challenges that the agency faced last year with the termination of a former chief and captain, which occurred a month before they were set for their CALEA examination. Every couple of years, CALEA comes in and has to recertify the department, and they usually go through a fourth of the 193 policies that they're required to implement and keep track of. And this year, they didn't really even want to come to Bethany because of what happened. They did not have the confidence that the department would continue the way it had, better than it had. And so what happened then, Chief Foley convinced them to come, and instead of doing a partial examination, they reviewed all 193 of the policies and how they were implemented and the reports and the data on every one. And they passed with flying colors. And I think that's a tribute to them. And as we speak, they're out in California. Chief Foley and Deputy Chief Norman are out in California to accept the CALEA accreditation, the renewal of it. And I understand from Chief Foley that at the beginning of the meeting out there in California, they singled out the Bethany Beach Police Department for its accomplishment.
Wow.
So I think we really have to be proud of them. If you see them, congratulate them. Yeah. And I think that's all I have. The next quarterly meeting will be on Tuesday, June 3rd at 10 a.m. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardiman. Yeah, I think our police are incredible. I mean, I've been told that Deputy Chief Norman is actually a trainer of the trainers. So, top-notch people in our force. Next on the agenda, a report from the Culture and Historical Affairs Committee. Mrs. Califf.
The Cultural and Historical Affairs Committee held a meeting on Tuesday, March 11th. Development of our resource room at the Dinker Irvin Museum is in progress. The overhead lighting has been installed, as well as a video roll-up banner in preparation for our Stories project, which is planned for this summer. We will be videotaping the people who want to share memories of their time in Bethany Beach. We've already had several visitors to the museum indicate that they want to come back and tell their story just as soon as we're up and running. So we'll certainly be putting that in the Coastal Point and get that going. Visitors to the Dinker Irvin Museum in January and February have exceeded last year's count. We're very happy about that. In January of 2024, we had 7 visitors. This year, we had 28. In February of 2024, we had 11 visitors. This year, we had 26. And we've recently added 3 more docents to our group. A display was created for Women's History Month, which is March, called Notable Women Among Us. The women we chose to focus on this year are Martha Jean Addy, Carolyn Hughes, Rosemary Hardiman, Margaret Young, Jane Fowler, Marjorie Bramall, and Carol Olmsted. One name you may not be familiar with is Marjorie Bramall. Marjorie Townsend Bramall Slaughter was the daughter of Delaware Supreme Court Justice Howard Wellington and Margaret Purnell Bramall. She was a 1942 graduate of the Penn Hall School, attended the Peabody Conservatory, and studied piano at the Wilmington School of Music. She was the first female lifeguard of the Bethany Beach Patrol. There was much controversy about a woman being a lifeguard, and even though the town was hesitant, Marjorie became the first in 1942. On September 3rd of that year, she rescued Sergeant Stanley J. Krupka, bringing him safely back to shore after he experienced heart failure while swimming. She received a letter of commendation from the commanding officer of the Signal Corps, praising her valiant work and thanking her for saving his life. She took her job very seriously and was determined to open the door for other women to follow. In the 1980s, she was an investigator specializing in minority and women's business contracts for the federal and state programs administered through the State of Delaware Department of Transportation. And you can read about our other notable women right here in the museum in the lobby of Town Hall. That's my report.
Thank you. Report from the town manager, Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, council. I'm sure most of you have seen, or many of you have probably seen, the work that Delmarva Power and Light is doing on Pennsylvania Avenue. Years ago, when when Route 1 was redesigned and the downtown Bethany bypass was created, before that, the transmission lines for Delmarva Power ran down Pennsylvania Avenue. With the new construction, Delmarva Power decided it would save some dollars and not move those utility poles from Pennsylvania to Route 1. They let them stay, and over the years have continued to try to enhance them or improve them. 12 poles on Pennsylvania Avenue, 12 75-foot poles on Pennsylvania Avenue are going to be taken down and replaced with 85-foot tall poles to be able to carry the additional transmission lines that you see being installed up and down Route 1. It's been mildly disruptive. There have been some service interruptions. Delmarva Power does a good job of apprising everyone of that, and so far work is proceeding slowly, but it is proceeding and certainly will be done before the summer. Pay to Park, I think we've mentioned it here, is a critical part of revenue we generate to support ourselves in the summer, and it's always an ongoing battle to maintain Pay to Park spaces. We lose them with construction, we lose them with bike spaces, moped spaces, realignments of driveways. It's a battle to keep 1,000. We were down to last year about 950, 940. With the addition of the parking lot across the street and hard work in the parking department, they've identified a number of other spaces, and we're back up to 1,031 spaces, again with the hope that we might add 7 or 8 more. Again, it's a critical thing for us, and it is an ongoing battle for the parking department, and they work very hard to keep that number steady for us. I think you all know we've talked about dredging. Through Terry's hard work, we've actually picked up some dollars to dredge the Loop Canal. Whether we do a complete dredge to a uniform depth throughout the canal or just simply a maintenance of high spots, we haven't determined yet, but that's dependent on what funding we do ultimately end up with to dredge the loop. Some good news for us is that our engineers have been in a dialogue with the National Guard, and they're in the process of creating a memorandum of understanding that will allow us to place our spoils on wetlands that the National Guard want to restore at the very west end of their property. So that's proceeding. That's a significant thing for us because that will be a significant cost saving if the spoils don't have to travel far and can simply be removed and placed on National Guard property. So that's progress in that area. And Julie has, I think, published her bandstand schedule for the year. There's a news release out. It's 48 bands. We're back to doing weekends. And I think she's put a very good lineup together this year. She's had some surprise cancellations, but she's done a good job in coming back with that and has a great lineup in store for us. And Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Cliff. Julie always does an amazing job at pulling things together.
She does.
Absolutely.
Yep. Before we go on to new business, I'd like to state that there will be an opportunity for the public to address questions on the agenda items after the initial council discussion and before there are any council votes. First item under new business is discussion, consideration, possible vote on a supplement to the fiscal year 2025 operating and capital budgets. Mrs. Keel.
Thank you, Mayor. This supplement adjusts the previously approved fiscal year 2025 operating budget and capital budgets to match end results. In the operating budget, the town experienced costs higher than anticipated in several departments and lower than anticipated in other departments. This amendment reallocates some funds between departments and adds $60,000 in new funds. In the capital budget, 4 projects were either not in the fiscal 2025 budget or the amount budgeted was not sufficient. This amendment adds $221,000 to the general fund capital budget and $278,000 to the water fund capital budget. Do we have a motion to approve?
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Can I ask one thing?
Yes, please.
Where does the money come from that we,
The reserves.
okay. And we have plenty in reserve.
We have plenty.
Well, we have enough.
Well,
We don't have plenty,
Yeah.
we have enough.
we have enough for this.
Okay. Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? This carries. Next item, discussion, consideration, and possible vote regarding adjusting the fiscal year 2025 operating budget to match grant funds actually received. Mrs. Keel.
The town applies for grant funds from federal, state, and other sources. The fiscal year 2025 budget was prepared over a year ago using estimates of the minimum grant funding we expected. Grant funds awarded to the town have exceeded these early estimates by over $832,000. This amendment will adjust the revenue and expense budget of the town's special fund to match the grant funds that were actually awarded to the town during the past year. Do we have a motion?
Great, thank you. Do we have a motion? Second? Second. Any discussion? Any discussion from the audience? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, discussion, consideration, and possible vote on the budget for fiscal year 2026 and schedule of fees. Mrs. Keel.
The Budget and Finance Committee recommends approval of the fiscal year 2026 budget. The budget has been available to the public on the town's website and at Town Hall. The proposed budget includes $15,238,000 in revenue and $12,975,000 in operating costs, $4,197,000 in capital projects, and $246,000 in debt repayments. A public hearing was held on Monday, March 17th. At that hearing, 4 people objected to the 33% increase in hourly parking fees, daily weekly permits, fees, and shuttle bus fees. 2 people objected to the 20% increase to water usage fees, as it will raise the cost to run their businesses. The Budget and Finance Committee believes the proposed increases are necessary in order for the town to remain fiscally responsible and ensure revenues generated by the summer season fully cover the cost of summer operations. I make a motion that the council approve the budget and schedule of fees for fiscal year 2026.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Any comments from the audience? Any comments? I was expecting some comments on this one, but okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is a discussion, consideration, and possible vote on appointments to the election board and election officers to serve as officials for the special election being held on Saturday, May 24, 2025, for the purpose of voting for or against the town's council's proposal to borrow a sum of money to construct a new water clarifier. Mr. Mayor?
As we know, we have a referendum coming up on Saturday, May the 24th, Memorial Day weekend, between 10 and 4 p.m., 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. The confirmed Board of Elections for this referendum includes Charles McMullen, Chris Aumiller, and Pat Moran. The elections officers include Suzanne Evans, John Gom, Andrea Gowetsky, Jan Kinsella, Rick Moran, and Greg Rinker. I make a motion that we accept that group. Second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Anybody from the audience? Janie?
Janie Switzer, 318 Wellington. Will we be able to vote via proxy or absentee ballot if we're not here?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
I was wondering what you were going to ask. Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so motion carries. Discussion, consideration, and possible vote requesting that the town council grant permission to the Charter and Ordinance Committee to review a white paper submitted by the town's Board of Adjustment regarding review of Section 475, parentheses F, French drains, and 395-34, stabilization of stormwater runoff of the town code. Mr. McHugh.
Thank you, Mayor. An issue has arisen in a recent Board of Adjustments case involving the matters of the French drains, and the case addressed the application of Code Section 475F, which states that building permits for new and remodeling construction must include a French drain that lays out the conditions for such a French drain. In reviewing the matter before the BOA, it became clear that the position of the town has been that the purpose of a French drain is to divert water away from a crawl space or basement, and therefore a French drain is not necessary for projects built on pilings or with a filled slab. While that seems logical and I think appropriate, the code section is not written that way, and thus we think it should be revised to reflect current practice. It also appears that the conditions for a French drain that is specified in section 475F do not conform to current practice in defining such a French drain. So that also needs to be revised accordingly. On a related matter, it also came up in that case that Code Section 395-34 specifies that a building permit for new construction must include 2 or more of the following described techniques, 1 being a French drain, 2 being diversion of water from downspouts to a dry well, and 3 being construction of downspouts to a perforated plastic pipe buried in the lawn and entering to a point away from the house. As currently written, this provision seems to create ambiguity, especially as it relates to French drains, because if the other section of the code suggests that French drains are necessary in all situations. So if, as suggested, Code Section 475F, French drains are required for all new construction, then it would seem to indicate that Section 395-34 would require not 2 out of the 3, but instead would require French drains in all cases along with 1 of the other 2 techniques. I realize that only a lawyer can love this stuff. I have
There's
to-
more?
There's one more paragraph. I just had to point that out. In order to remedy this situation, it seems like both of the sections need to be revised accordingly, although we haven't yet decided exactly how. If the council here today agrees, then the Charter and Ordinance Review Committee will review with the town and building inspector those sections and come up with proposed changes to the code sections for later submission to the council in a proposed ordinance for consideration and approval. And just as an aside, the town does not want to be in a situation where its code is saying one thing and it's doing another thing. So we always want to have the code and conforming to practices, because it could cause a problem in several other places in the code. So it's good practice to do this. I know it's a bit of a slog to get through the reading of it. So that is the proposal. So I would make a motion that the council approve the going forward and creating a proposed ordinance to fix these problems.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion on council? Any discussion? You sincerely
wants to go through it again.
confused us totally.
Hey, that's what I do.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The last item on the agenda today is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on moving the regularly scheduled April town meeting to April 25th, 2025. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, our meeting falls on the 18th, which is Good Friday, and I didn't know if the council, taking that into consideration, might want to change the date to the 25th. In addition, town employees follow the holiday schedule that's published yearly by Sussex County, and that's a holiday, although staff is more than happy to come in on Good Friday. I did know if you might want to consider changing the date to the 25th.
And personally, I think it's a good move. The only negative I see is from the April meeting to the May meeting is only 3 weeks, but I think we can live with that. Yep. Do I have a motion to make the change?
Moved, so moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That concludes our meeting today. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody, for attendance, and those listening online. Stay safe. Enjoy the upcoming spring weather. We hope it comes soon. Yeah, kind of. Look at that window.